Hi, I'm Dr. Amy Robbins, and welcome to Life, Death, and the Space Between. My interview today with Karen Salmansohn is incredible. It is like she and I were living in the same head. Her new book, Your to Die For Life, How to Maximize Joy and Minimize Regret Before Your Time Runs Out, is exactly what I am often talking about on this show. We talk about mortality awareness. I dig into the soul. She talks about the soul. We talk about woo, and if you're woo or woo woo, and what the difference is. And I try to bring Karen over to our side of the woo woo, not just the woo. And I also ask her a question that she says she has never been asked before in all the interviews she has done. And she has done a lot because Karen is a best-selling author and behavioral change expert. And she's often celebrated for blending research-based psychological strategies with bold humor. She has over 2 million books and courses sold. So she is someone who has been interviewed time and time again. And I have to say, I absolutely loved talking to her. I think you're going to love this interview. I think you're going to have so many nuggets that you will be able to take with you and apply to your life immediately. So with that, here is today's interview with Karen Salmansohn.
We need at our table of awareness the logician, but equally we need the intuitive, we need the mystic.
I almost died. I was allowed to go to the very precipice of death, of life and death, and look over the edge. And I was allowed to behold what was there and allowed to come back. Most people aren't.
When we talk about being aligned with ourself or being aligned with our soul or hearing our higher self, that's really what we're talking about, is being connected to that divine part of ourself, that light-filled part of us that is connected to God energy, that is connected to everybody here and every experience we've ever had.
If more doctors, more professionals can open up to use intuitive gifts in their work, that's really important.
Hi, I'm Dr. Amy Robbins, and welcome to Life, Death, and the Space Between. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist and medium, and here we explore life, death, mediumship, near-death experiences, consciousness, and what it all means. Welcome, Karen, to Life, Death, and the Space Between.
Oh, it's great to be here. I'm excited to talk with you.
Likewise. So you have had a whole career, and it isn't until now that you really brought death more into we're going to go right for it. We're going to go right in. Brought death sort of more into the picture. So why now, and what changed for you that you brought this conversation? Because this has sort of been there for you for a long time, but only more recently kind of came forward.
Yeah. Well, I've been wanting to write this book for the longest time, and my agent kept talking me out of it. And for the same reason, a lot of people don't want to talk about death. She thought it was like a taboo topic. And I am a writer and a behavioral change expert. I write a lot about changing behavior, and it's usually about resiliency, psychology, or happiness or anxiety, like more of the usual suspects of emotional well-being, but I wanted to write this book since my father passed away. At this point, it's like 2 decades ago. And she's like, nobody wants to read a book about death. But I'm like, that's exactly why I need to write this. We need to start talking about it more openly. And finally, I remember the day that I decided to do it anyway, without her as my agent, to leave her and find an agent. I thought to myself, and this even goes into some of the tools in the book, I remember when I wanted to do a different book of mine called How to Be Happy, Damn It, back in the 1990s. And I had a different agent, and she tried to talk me out of that one. And I was younger. And when I was thinking back on that, I thought, oh, back then I was younger. I guess I was bolder and feistier, and I really stood up for myself more. I guess I'm just not that way anymore. I thought that thought. And then I thought, wait a minute, I'm still bold. I'm still feisty. I'm still, willing to fight for what I want. I believe in this book. And then I left her and found another agent. And the reason why this goes with the book is The book is about remembering to live boldly and authentically and meaningfully from your heart, not listening to what society says, not listening to what your mother, your father, your agent says, like live your life. And you were here and then we're not. And it's up to us to make the here part as bold and authentic and meaningful as possible. So I left her and I went forward with the book anyway. So that's my very long story, but I've been wanting to write this book.
Well, and I think what you're talking about, and we'll get to this a little bit later too, is listening and trusting your own intuitive,
Yes.
Your own intuitive voice that's saying, this is the right book for me, or whatever it is. It might not be book, it might be relationship, it might be job. Like, I need to step away from this and into something that is true for me.
Yes. And that's how I felt when I did How to Be Happy, Damn It. And that book became a huge bestseller and was in an Eminem video. The musician, he liked the book so much that on his own, I didn't even send it to him. You see him in a music video, the camera pans him and he's reading the book. And so that book sold like 250,000 copies and spawned 2 sequels. So I was right about that. When you listen to intuition, it's like and so far this book is doing, the new book, You're to Die for Life, the one about death, is doing very well and has hit, #1 new release in a bunch of different categories and getting really strong reviews. So I'm feeling I'm right again.
Mm-hmm. Listen to that voice.
Yes.
So can you talk a little bit about your father's death and how that really shaped how you thought about living life? You call it a near life experience. And it's interesting today, of all the days that I'm interviewing you, I'm also interviewing Raymond Moody, who coined near death experience. So, and his book is Proof of Life After Life. So I just think I'm always fascinated by the synchronicities of how my days line up, because I just put out my calendar and people sign up for days, when I have availability. And so the juxtaposition of these two, minds that I have on today is fascinating to me.
Oh, I love that. That is so cool.
Isn't that cool? I know.
You can write that up on my Substack. I'll say I was interviewed today and the one after me was going to be the guy who coined near-death experiences.
Yeah.
That's so funny. Well, I say I wrote this book about death for 2 reasons. One of them is that my dad passed, but the other one is I write a book about death, not because I had a near-death experience, but I did have a near-life experience. And what I mean by that, I made up that phrase, but there should be a phrase for it. It's when we're on our phones so much, we're swiping and, we're sitting outside, but we're not looking around at nature because we're on our phones. So we're not in our lives. We're near life. We're life adjacent. Or we're out to dinner with a loved one and they're like talking to us, but our mind is elsewhere. We're caught up future projecting about a problem or ruminating about something or regret from the past. And again, we're not in our lives. We're near life. And then the third kind of near life experience is when we keep saying, someday I will, someday. And again, we're not in the now. We're putting things off till someday. And when my dad passed, I realized I was having too many near life experiences and that I wasn't really living for now. And in particular, his death woke me up to really moving forward with having a family, because that was one of the ones I kept saying, someday, someday. And his death was more of a wake-up call to my own biological clock. It was like, okay, I'm doing this. I am moving forward. I was sad that he would never get to see me as a mom, get to meet my kids when he passed. And then you'll like this odd little coincidence. He passed away on August 27th, 4 years later to the day my son was born on August 27th. So my dad's
goosebumps.
birthday. Yeah. Isn't that cool? It's my son's birthday.
Yeah. I love those stories of synchronicities where things just like numbers, dates. If you are not in a near life experience, but you are in a life experience and you pay attention to all of that, it's often remarkable how the dates. I have crazy date situations in my life and my family too. So it's just always like my breath is sort of taken away by for me, it's the numbers of days, like the numbers that kind of match up oddly. So, so how did you go from, right? Because a lot of people might have this sort of, you call it mortality awareness, to be able to actually applying this and really taking it and running with it and putting into practice these things that you talk about. You know, lots of people think, oh, I should take that trip. I should call that friend, but they don't do it.
Well, it happened in a couple of steps that were very organic and led me down this path. One is I gave my father's eulogy. And after I gave his eulogy, I started to think about, well, what would my eulogy be? And then am I living up to a eulogy that I want for myself? And so I took the time and I wrote out my eulogy, not for the life that if I died that day, but an aspirational eulogy. Like, what do I want my life to be about? And then I kind of thought about current me and aspirational eulogy me. And in aspirational eulogy me, I had a family and a kid, and all of that. And then I reverse engineered it and thought, okay, what do I need to start doing more of now? Mm-hmm. So I can become, what are the bridge habits that I need to take to become aspirational eulogy me? And then I also looked at the top regrets of the dying. And I looked at it from a couple different sources because I know there's a book about that, but lately there's a lot of death doulas that write about the regrets of the dying. So I kind of looked at all of them. And then I reverse engineered those and thought, what do I need to do to become, to avoid those regrets? And then at the same time, you see, I guess it helps to know that I'm a research geek. And I also love, I dig in, I go down rabbit holes.
Because you don't have a psychology background.
I was a film major and philosophy minor. And I love philosophy. Mm-hmm. That was the other thing that influenced me wanting to do this book. I love Aristotle's philosophies, but I write about him in a way that's very conversational. It's not like I'm sitting here talking to you about it in a way that's hard to understand. I write about it very simply. And Aristotle, by coincidence, has written at around the same time of this, I had known about this, that he wrote something that said, you don't know if you've lived a good life until you're on your deathbed. And he also said that we should begin every project with the ends in mind. Mm-hmm. That was Aristotle. I know that Steve Covey wrote that too, but Aristotle was born a little before him.
Right, just a few years.
Credit Aristotle for that. And Aristotle said, begin with the end in mind, every project, from something tiny to something large, like that gigantic project called your life. So this is from Aristotle. And think about how you want to feel on your deathbed. Mm-hmm. So in a way, he was, proposing we write eulogies too, and then reverse engineer it. But Aristotle took it a step further. And he said that we all have the same end goal for our lives, no matter who you are, whether or not you're from Toledo, Timbuktu, Toronto, every person on this planet, even in the year 2025 to his time, we all have the same end goal for life, according to Aristotle, and that is to learn lessons that help you to become your best possible self. And in Aristotle's day, he said the reason why so many people were unhappy, and it applies to the year 2025, the reason why people are so unhappy is they have the wrong end goal for life. They think it's become the richest person on the planet, become the sexiest person on the planet, to have the most social media followers on this planet. It's status, power, fame, glory, beauty, money, all of those things. And he said that no, the goal is to grow into your best self and to live what he called a soul-directed life. Mm-hmm. Not an ego-directed life, wealth-directed life, status-directed life, all of those things. And he says if you have the wrong end goal for your life, when you get to the end of your life, you're going to be really disappointed because you're going to realize you chased wrong rabbits. I'm summarizing for him. But and the other way I say what Aristotle said is, according to Aristotle, the soul is your G-spot for happiness. I say that to be memorable.
I mean,
that's not a quote, but that's really what he would say if he was here.
That is so, everything you're saying. First of all, I have taught a course called Live Your Life Backwards, which looks from a soul perspective, but also from the psychological kind of human perspective.
Yes.
And one of the exercises I have is write your eulogy. And it's exactly what you said, like from not if you were to die today, but like if aspirational. And people struggle with this. They struggle to sit down and write it because it really forces you to look at yourself and say, where am I being honest with myself? And where am I not being, where am I lying to myself? I mean, there's so much in what you just said. I feel like we could have multiple podcasts on it. But what I loved about what you said too is how you feel on your deathbed, how you feel. It's not about like, you know, how much money you made or how many followers you had. It's like, what do you want to feel? And I think we've gotten so away from how we want to feel. I mean, ultimately, that's what people are chasing, right? In this is like, what do they want when they have status and power? What is the feeling that they're really after that they don't get from status and power, but they're still searching for it through that? It's just, yeah. It's been a while since I've talked to you about what I'm up to. I want to first start by thanking so many of my supporters who have supported me on Patreon and in my Circle community. What's so exciting now is we have my new Circle community up and running, where if you want to contribute to supporting the podcast, you can do so at different levels for different values. So head on over to my Circle group. You can actually find the link in the show notes below. And there's opportunities to continue to support the podcast. And I have to say, your support of the podcast is frankly what has kept this podcast going over time. I have been funding the podcast solely by myself. I get a little bit of money in advertising dollars, but not a lot. So anything that you can give, if you have found value in this podcast, and it's not just giving without anything back, I will give back to you. You will be a part of this community with opportunities for discounts and conversations and ask Amy anythings. But it's a great opportunity for you to support what hopefully has helped you over the many, many years. Also, there's so many other ways now that you can work with me. I am offering a group course called Live Your Life Backwards, which is finishing its first cohort this winter and has been absolutely incredible. There's retreats coming up. There's workshops. There's one-on-one sessions with me. So many options that we can work together. So make sure you're subscribed to my YouTube channel. Make sure you're subscribed to my podcast, and make sure you're subscribed to my newsletter, where you will get a free soul wisdom workbook to help you dig deeper into the virtues that you want to be living in this lifetime. We all need so much more spirituality now. We are in a spiritual crisis, and I'm giving you so many tools to tap into your own spirituality. So check out, and don't forget to subscribe to Life, Death, and the Space Between so you never miss an episode.
And I know I'll take it a couple steps further, because having written the book, I want to say like 20 things to that, because it's all in my head from having written this book.
Go for it.
And so I want to say a couple of things. I'm trying to figure out which one to blurt first. But okay, when you're at somebody's funeral, or if somebody's at your funeral, nobody's going to read your LinkedIn profile out loud. That's not what they're going to talk about at your funeral, right? They're going to tell stories about you. And they're going to tell stories like, she was so kind. I remember once I was sick and she came over with soup. Or, oh, she was such a great listener. When I was going through my divorce, she sat there with me. Or she was so supportive. When I lost my job, she helped me to meet. They're going to tell stories, and they're all going to begin with a core value. Core values. Mm-hmm. That's because, according to Aristotle, you are supposed to become your highest potential self. And he was very core value oriented.
He was very spiritual.
Very spiritual. I love the guy. I named my son Ari as a wink to him, because I'm a geek and I'm a nerd. But I didn't call him Aristotle. That would have been.
Do you know that Raymond Moody loves philosophy too? That he was also a philosopher?
Wow. Yeah. I did not know that.
You guys need to meet.
I'd love to meet him. I would love to meet him. Yes. Yes. So, so it's about core values. So in my book, I have a fill in the blank eulogy, like a Mad Libs eulogy, because a lot of people do struggle when you say, okay, let's sit down and write your eulogy. So I make it easier for them by having this fill in the blank eulogy. And the fill in the blanks are almost like prompts, but I'm going to give you a little spoiler alert. You can still read the book. This book still matters. But those blanks, a lot of them are core values.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I also believe is, and those bridge habits to get you from current you to aspirational eulogy you, they don't usually wind up on your typical to-do list. So I have people write what I call a to-die list, which is like a to do what matters most list. It's not a bucket list. It's like what you do daily.
Mm.
I think that to-do lists have a fatal flaw. They're mainly about being productive, like worshiping productivity. And it's so much, you could do everything on your to-do list and get to your end of your life and feel like, what did I do with my life? Because the productivity things are not necessarily the meaningful life things. So it's to remind yourself of what your core values are. And there's a whole area in behavioral change psychology called identity-based habits that I can get into now too, unless I'm talking too quickly.
No, go for it. Go. I mean, you're speaking like what's in my head all the time, so I love it.
Okay, cool. So, all right. So we might know, oh yeah, it would be great if I became aspirational eulogy me, but that's a lot of work. How do I get to become aspirational eulogy me? Well, what's preventing you and what can motivate you has to do with your identity. So what keeps us stuck in the same place is our identity. So example, if I walk around and I just think, I'm sloppy, I'm going to do the habits of a sloppy person, or I'm organized, I'm going to do the habits of an organized person, or I'm brave, I'm going to do the habits of a brave person. The story that I told you where I said out loud when I guess when I was younger, I was bolder, I was feistier, I was more innovative. And then I thought, wait, I am those now. I was reawakening my core values, my identity. I do see myself as bold. I do see myself as innovative. I do see myself as feisty. And because I realized that's who I want to be, those are my values, I'm going to do this. It reawakened my identity and it helped me to move forward. And there's a whole study and that's also why, let's say you're not going to the gym. It's harder to start going to the gym. But once you go to the gym all the time, it's easier to go to the gym because your identity is, I am athletic, I go to the gym, or I am a gym goer, even something like that. So you need to get your identity in place. Your identity is the puppet master for your habits. And so what I have people do is write, I am and so I do statements. So I am a loving person. And so I call my mother twice a week on Wednesdays at this time and Sundays at this time. And then if you don't do it, it creates cognitive dissonance. Wait a minute. I'm not calling her. I'm a loving person. Why wouldn't I call my mom on those times at those dates? Or I am a brave person. I'm going to write this book. And so you remind yourself of your identity up front, and then you're more likely to do the habit. So it kind of creates this kind of like cognitive dissonance if you're not doing it.
So how did you go from, like, at what point did you feel like you might have slipped away from the part of you, the bold part of yourself that then you moved back into? Because I think that this is important as well, because I always say that like in my clinical work, you can eventually get back to the time where the person started not being authentic with themselves, right? Not being authentic. I always say with their soul is, and they sort of get lost in something. And when they can find their way back there for you, it was that place of boldness. It was like, I'm going to step into this new this old new version of myself. So how did you lose that along the way?
Okay, I can tell you, and to tell you the truth, that's a good, almost a therapy question. And kudos to you. You're the first person that's asked me that. But I'm putting it together right now. Like, you don't realize that you just gave me like an epiphany. Like, I've never said this out loud. I've never thought this. You're the first person to ask me. But when I think about it, it comes to me like this. So I know it's true. I was selling the books that I wanted to, and I was working pretty hard. And I was in the top regret of the dying is I wish I hadn't worked so hard. And that's how I had avoided having a family sooner. So I decided to have more balance in my life and then start my family. And I wanted to be a good mom. And so what happened was I got on a conveyor belt of books. And no offense to my past books either, but I'm answering you honestly because I think it's an interesting question. Okay. So what happened was How to Be Happy, Damn It spawned another book. And then everybody at the publishing house was like, well, How to Be Happy, Damn It was a big bestseller. Why? And they're like, oh, she has the word happy in the book. So then the publishing house was, do another book, but it has to have the word happy in the title. So then I did Instant Happy, and then I did Instant Happy Journal, and then I did Think Happy, Happy Habits, and they kept putting the word happy. And I let myself stay on the conveyor belt of books because I didn't mind. I like researching. I liked the topic, but I was an exhausted mom. And I also I need more balance. And for me to fight back, and I was doing the mom thing and then this, and sometimes people have what I call pendulum swings. And it's like, I'm working too hard. I don't want to work that hard anymore. And then the pendulum swings a little and you're like, this is easy. I'll just do the conveyor belt book. And it's mean of me to call it a conveyor belt book. I actually love those books. I really do. But it wasn't me telling them the book I wanted to do. They're like, why don't you do this book? It was so easy. Here, write this book on happiness, which is still a topic that I'm interested in. But I didn't want to, why upset the conveyor belt?
Right.
And then I woke up and I'm like, I really want to do this book. And my agent was going, it's just so easy. Just do what the publisher wants. And I feel bad. I love that publisher. I even love that agent. But I was buying into that because at that point I was more of an exhausted first-time mom. And I didn't want to go back into like working too hard. And so the pendulum swung a little bit too far into do the easiest thing. And that's the answer. That's a very honest answer.
And I
publishing house.
No, I so appreciate the vulnerability and the authenticity of that answer because I think so many people, so many women in particular will resonate with is like, I just got on and I've been there. Like we've all sort of probably been there at some point where like, it's just easier. I always say I'm not going to screw up your name here, but you know, sometimes you have to feel like a salmon fighting upstream, right? Like that, yeah. You know, it is much harder to step off the conveyor belt and do something different than it is to just stay on the conveyor belt of life.
Yes.
But maybe when you are on that conveyor belt of life, you get to that aspirational eulogy or your deathbed and you look and you wish I had gotten off the conveyor belt.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess everybody has their own version of a conveyor belt, don't they?
I think so.
But I wasn't the only one stuck on a conveyor belt.
No. And I think at different times in life, you can be stuck. Like as long as you're acknowledging that you're on the conveyor belt and you're like, I tell people all the time, certainly I talk with women about this too. Like now isn't maybe the time to like have a massive career change if you're just starting your family. Like there's a time you could kind of ride out a little bit of sweat equity that you've put into what you're doing. You're creating something new right now. Like let's think about doing that, 5 years from now, once you feel like the ground is resettled under you. So maybe that was an opportunity for like, maybe that was the time for you to be on the conveyor belt. And then you were able to get off of it once you could see clearly. But I think if you don't know you're on the conveyor belt, it's much harder to get off the conveyor belt.
Yeah. And if I were to analyze it a little bit without naming anybody's name, so it's more of an interesting story, I think I also intuitively thought a new thought about my agent, who I love and think she's very smart, was she was loving the conveyor belt because she didn't have to work, but it wasn't her career. She, quite frankly, that same publishing house kept giving me book deal after book deal after book deal. She didn't have to shop me.
Right.
And so to shop a book is more work for her to earn her commission. And not only that, how do you tell publishing houses, you know, that happiness author, she has a book on death.
Right. Doesn't that sound happy?
And she's like, I don't want to deal with it. So she was in her own self-interest. She wasn't in my self-interest.
Right.
And I suddenly started to feel that way, even though I like her as a person and think she's smart and everything.
Mm-hmm.
She was a little influenced by that. And so I had to awake, and you talked about intuition, to the intuition. Oh, she's not just suggesting this to help me. She's suggesting it because she liked the conveyor belt for her.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This
And I think it's
And
so
she-
complicated,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's never like so clear. I mean, there's oftentimes other people's interest wrapped up in
Yes.
what we're doing, unless we're, right? Unless you're self-publishing, and I mean, we're talking about publishing in this context, but you can extrapolate what we're talking about probably to other areas of life.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's where, quite frankly, I'm going to even segue into something from my book, which I think is a good time to segue, is I looked at the top regrets of the dying, and some of them were, I wish I had lived more true to myself.
Mm-hmm.
I wish I had expressed myself more authentically, openly. So a lot of them have to do with authentic. And so when I reverse engineered I had like 6 or 7 that I picked for the book that were top regrets of the dying. I realized that there were 7 core values that if you like mindfully, consciously, intentionally own these core values, and do I am and so I do statements and actions with them, you can avoid the top regrets of the dying. And I'd love to share with you and your listeners the top 7 regrets.
That was going to be my next question, so go for it.
Okay. These are the antidotes, and they're core values, but you have to attach habits to them. And they go in alphabetical order, except for one, which I had to tweak to make it fit in alphabetically. But the first one is A is for authentic. And that's what I did in that moment. Like, I wanted to live authentically to me. That book was authentic for me. It was something I knew it was in my craw I wanted to do. And I needed to just wake up and do it. So, and everything that you do, if you do it authentically, you will feel like you're living a meaningful life because it's your life.
Exactly.
You know? Yep. B is for brave. And yes, that's what gets you out of the comfort zone. And some of the things you're going to be most proud about at the end of your life are those moments when you were brave, when you got off your conveyor belt, to stay with this metaphor. C is curious. And that one's a big one because there's a saying, we repeat what we don't repair. And so if you're having a repeated pattern of pain of your life, you have to get curious about it. Like, a lot of people they think, why is this happening to me? But instead you have to ask, why is this happening to me? Mm-hmm. Like a different emphasis. Mm-hmm. Like, really think, why is this happening to me? Get curious about it.
Well, and curiosity is about learning, right? Mm-hmm. And so life is about learning. That's what I love about that curiosity.
With the Aristotle philosophy of we're here to learn and grow into our highest, best self. Yes, definitely. D is for discerning. And that's because a lot of us go, oh, I don't have time to, whatever it is. I don't have time to go to the gym, or I don't have time to write my novel. I don't have time to is like the adult equivalent of the dog ate my homework. It's just like this excuse. And if we're discerning about our time, our energy, our attention, our focus, we have to look at where the crap and clutter is in our life. And in the book, I help people to do a life audit and figure out where that is.
I could probably start with social media.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Definitely. Definitely. And then, okay, so, and then E. This is the one I had to tweak to get it in there. I want to put loving in, but it didn't match alphabetically. So I put the word empathic in front of it. And I got to tell you, I think I like it even better with empathically loving, because I wanted to include not just like, if it was just loving, you might think it's about romance or something. And I want it to be about strangers, your colleagues, your clients, your dogs, animals, to be empathically loving person. And it's really about like active listening and compassion and kindness. And so all of those habits that you do that are inspired from being empathically loving are also going to be things that create meaningful experiences that you're going to really treasure at the end of your life. F is fun, and fun is a core value. And that's because a lot of people are working too hard. It's like that burnout thing and the worshiping the productivity thing. So I have people think about the core value of fun and purposefully schedule fun appointments with themselves. And then G is gratitude. And that helps you on those tough days to kind of move forward, or if things get challenging on the way to becoming aspirational eulogy you. And also because one of the top regrets of the dying is, I wish I hadn't lost touch with my friends. If you're grateful for your friends and you live really appreciating them, you're going to be like filling up that emotional bank account. You're with them, and you won't be as likely to let good friends fall away if you live with gratitude. So those are the top 7 core values. And then you add in little habits that you can do with them, and you put that on your daily to die list, and you will make sure that you will live what I call your to die for life, where you feel like at the end of your life, you lived a life that you are very proud of.
And I think we all know people who are living a to die for life, because we look at them and we think, wow, they're really doing it. Like and it's not necessarily big things. It can be the everyday things. And you just feel that energy from them. You vibrate when you're around them. You want to be attracted to people like that because they are living authentically. And I love this. One of the things that I just did, a tip for people who are listening, I just decided from now on, when I think of someone, if I have a few minutes, I'm just going to call them. I'm not going to text them anymore. And if they can pick up the phone and talk, great. And if they can't, they'll get a message from me that will say, just thinking of you and would love to catch up when you have a chance. Just give me a call. And like this morning, I did that, and I was able to connect with someone, it's a new friend, and I was able to just connect with them. And it's so rich to have those experiences of talking to someone versus just saying like, oh, thinking of you, how are you?
I agree. I love that. I think that's a great habit, And if someone wanted to try to add it on, see, we wiggle out of it when I'm too busy, right? If you write, I am empathically loving, or some version, you don't have to use my exact words, because since I believe in being authentic, write it down the way it's you. I'm a warm person, whatever's the way that you would describe it. If empathically loving is too clunky for you, I am a warm person. So I call people when they pop into my mind, and then it will motivate you. Just attaching that identity to it makes you, there's like all this research about it, identity-based statements. People follow through on them more than just like writing, call friend. I'm a warm person, and so I call friends. It just creates.
Well, you're reinforcing that belief about that positive belief about yourself.
Yes.
Right. And that's why I love an I am statement versus like people, who, and why I also don't love an I am statement, because whatever comes after it has that much power. So you have to be careful what you put. I hear a lot of people say, I am anxious.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, oh, let's back this up, because you will believe that truth, and that will become who you are, but that's not who you are. That's not your identity.
I have an antidote for that one. If somebody feels like resistance because they're putting a core value that they're not really yet embodying, I have people write down. I have a lot of journaling in that I recommend, but I have people write, the old me used to be anxious. The new me is calm. Old me used to be but the new me is. And then I have another journaling practice that I have people do to help them brainstorm ways to deal with problems or ways to get themselves excited about moving forward. So it's a prompt that has a couple different variations. First one is, who do I need to become to get everything I want in my life? And that one's like a big blanket one. But if you want to drill in, you can also drill in. And then you answer that with core values. I need to become braver. I need to become more direct communicator, whatever it is. But you could also drill down, who do I need to become to stop arguing with my son so much? Or who do I need to become to finally go to the gym more? Or who do I need to become? And then you write it down and you answer it with the core values. And it doesn't have to be the 7 I picked. Pick the ones that come to you, like who do I need to become? And then fill in a problem that you're having, because pretty much a lot of problems in life could be resolved by kind of more owning a core value more strongly. So that way you're like, yes, I am brave, or I am strong, or I am resilient, and own it and then move forward.
That's where I think the mortality piece too is so, so powerful. And people who've been listening to me for a long time know that I talk about this. I mean, you call it mortality awareness, memento mori, contemplative. I call it a contemplative death practice, where you literally bring in, I mean, this has helped me in my relationships so much. It's like, okay, if something were to happen to me, primarily my primary core relationships with my family, like tomorrow when I stepped off the curb and got hit by a bus, is it going to matter that I said X, Y? Like, is it going to feel good that that's the parting words that I left my kids with, or my husband with, or, my parents with, or my siblings with, or even the person at the grocery store, or the person who cut me off in traffic? Like, all of that is my energy. And I don't know that that's what I want kind of my lasting mark to be, is like those energetic bursts.
Yes. Yeah. And I think it's good to remind yourself like that. And it's weird when you think of mortality awareness and you think about it, it changes what you're afraid of also. Like, oh, I'm afraid to pursue a career as a public speaker. Like, I'm just naming things here. But what about being afraid to die with that music still inside you, or not having done it, and it makes the fear of death helps the other fear look less scary.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm going to do this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to, or I really don't want to fight with I want to have, like, especially as, my mom gets older, I just let things go. I want to have closure. I want to have like a good relationship. It makes you think about, is really like these relationships matter? Is this a hill I want to, I guess I'm using the word die on. Is this the hill I want to die on?
Right.
Or do I want to, I don't know what death metaphor to bring in there, but it just puts everything into perspective more. That's what mortality awareness creates urgency, and urgency sparks action.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe like death serves like a purpose. If it lights a fire under our tush. And if there wasn't death, would any of us get anything done? We'd be like, oh, I'll write that book in a millennium or so. Oh, I'll tell him I loved him like in a couple thousand years from now. Or it reminds us. And that's what got me, again, my father's passing was more of a wake up call to move forward with the family than my own biological clock.
Mm-hmm.
Like, time, you never know. And
right.
So, seize the day.
Right. And death, I think, is the most powerful teacher and the most powerful sense of urgency, if you can allow it to come into your consciousness in a way that doesn't cripple you. Because I think some people get so afraid that they find themselves like unable to function, because they're like, and I actually think a lot of mental health issues at the core, and Irving Yalom says this, are, if you never talk about death in therapy, it isn't a full treatment, because death for so many is at the core of what we fear. Like, think about plane phobias, right? Like so many anxieties, OCD, right? Ultimately, at the core of so many of those are, I'm afraid that something's going to happen to me and I'm going to die.
You're right. I mean, they call it terror management theory. And it's like the word terror. It's not like scary. It's like terror. Like, the word terror is
Right.
used. So we have to really just embrace it and make peace with it, and then use that as motivation.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we can if we embrace it appropriately.
So you've sort of like danced a little around this, but you've talked about it as well. I'm curious what your take is, because your book is more practical, but there are spiritual elements in it. Where do you see spirituality and psychology coming together?
Well, I have a whole section in the book about whether or not we have a soul. And I look at it from, people that think, yes, we have a soul, and is there reincarnation?
Mm-hmm.
And then I look at it for people. I say that I'm not woo-woo, I'm one woo. I'm what
You're
I
woo.
call, I'm woo.
You're just woo.
Just woo.
But not like woo, like woo.
Not woo-woo. But sometimes there are things that I get woo-woo, like the fact that my son was born August 27th and my father died. I'm like, maybe I should join the woo-woo camp.
Come on over. We'd love to have you. I think you fit in more than you think you would.
I sometimes, yeah. But I'm also very psychological. And it doesn't mean you can't be woo-woo and psychological. Because
no, that's
you're
right.
Woo-woo and psychological, know. So, but in the book, I argue that it doesn't even matter if you're woo-woo or one woo or even zero woo. That the goal of life should still be to learn lessons that help you to become your best possible self. Because first of all, you'll be rewarded in the moment, because people that are living as one of the secrets of happiness is do actions you're proud of, and the more you do actions you're proud of, the happier you're going to be. And and it's something called flourishing, which I'm sure you know from Martin Seligman, that going through struggles and staying resilient and moving through them and growing from that creates like something happier than happiness, like fulfillment. And so I feel like you can believe in the spirituality, and I'm open because I am a curious person. And so I still stay open to it, but I don't really, my book, it doesn't take a side. And in fact, I argue both sides in my book and talk about a lot of spiritual things in the book, but also say my book is for you, even if this isn't who you are. It kind of looks at all angles of looking at death and trying to understand how that leads to a meaningful life. So I think that answers your question. I'm not sure if it does, but.
Yeah, I think in some ways everything is spiritual and everything is psychological. It's both and.
And one thing I will say is Aristotle, he believed in the soul, and he said a couple of things that are a little kind of spiritual, I guess, because he believes in the soul. But he said that he felt the highest form of knowledge was not anything that you would get from a book or from school. He said the highest form of knowledge is insight, because insight is the only knowledge that leads to growth, the growth of the soul. It's all about the education of the soul, and he said that what we need, and he also felt like we were the only animal that had the ability to have insight, as far as he knew back then. I think we'd say that still probably in the year 2025. I
can tell you my dog does not have insight.
Right. My dog, we have two dogs. We have the old soul dog and the new soul dog. And even old soul dog does not have insight.
Right.
But he also said, for this reason, it was a word that you kind of briefly mentioned, is that what we need to live a life where we value having insights is more time in contemplation. And he called it the contemplative life. And in today's world, we don't give ourselves time for contemplation. We're stuffing our brains with junk food constantly, the phone, the this, the that, and we need, put down your phone, take a walk. something so quick that people could do to make a promise to themselves today. If you're in a place ordering a coffee, right? Like getting a coffee to go or whatever, while you're waiting for your coffee, just in that little blip of time, don't look at your phone. Just
Oh,
let yourself there. It's such a good little window to practice contemplation. Don't look at your phone while you're waiting to get your coffee. Like practice these little moments where you can really stop looking at your phone all the time. Let that contemplation come in. Otherwise, we won't get the insights that we need to help, as you brought up earlier, intuition to show up, because otherwise you're not giving it any airspace to speak up in your brain because you're filling it with junk food.
yeah. And I just recognize, like, I've been starting to try to do that more because I've recognized how big of a problem my phone is for me. I mean, my kids were teasing me because I bought an app to block the apps. And they were like, wait, you bought an app to block the apps. Like, what's wrong with the thing, just the one that Apple uses? I'm like, too easy to bypass. Too easy to bypass. I bought one that makes it's called Opal for people who are curious. And it makes it really difficult. It's like a pain. It's too much of a pain to bypass. So you're just like, oh, forget it. I'm just not going on the app. And now but then you find another app, right? You find something else to do. And I was at the meat counter the other day and I was like, okay, you're not going to pick up your phone until you're out of the grocery store. Like, you're not going to look at it. And then I noticed all these urges that kept coming up to look at it. And I'm like, but there's nothing on there that is of any need for me right now.
Yeah.
And so I'm having this whole conversation with myself in my head about my own frustration with the fact that that they've created this really addictive thing. And it has hijacked all of our brains. And I meditate and I do all the things and I'm still completely hijacked by it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's like you can start really small to change some of these patterns in your life.
Yes. And I'm very pro taking time for contemplation. And I call it contemplation. I meditate also, but meditation, which is fantastic, love, fan, all of that. But it's about not letting those thoughts come to you. But I think we need those thoughts to come to us. So to just own it and call it contemplation. And not rumination, I don't want that either. So contemplation is more like letting insights come up. And
Right.
it's sort of like in between meditation and I don't know, whatever else that is.
Well,
Like
I find that meditation for me quiets the mind enough to let what I feel like is the intuitive magic come in.
Yes. Yeah.
And so I don't even need to actively contemplate anything because it just comes in and I'm like, oh, okay. So that's what I need to do next, or that's what is going to show up for me, or that's how I need to.
Well, for me, contemplation shows up when I'm journaling. And I have to journal not by writing on a computer or even on my phone, by hand on paper. And that's where I get my best. But that works for me. Everybody's different, But I really find journaling is when I realize those insights. So, or taking a long shower.
Me too. I get so many insights in the shower. Like it's where I always say this might be a little too woo-woo for you, but that's where my downloads come in.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. It's like, oh, okay, that's what I need to do. That's how this, I teach a course for therapists called Spiritually Informed Therapy. My entire course came to me in the shower.
Well, to me, it's when I also get these hits or the downloads and I know now you're going to think I'm going over to the woo-woo side.
I told you, come on over.
I think I might be swimming into the waters, but I've called them to my partner, Howard, like clairvoyant moments, like where I'm like, oh my God, I know something. Like I knew, like I don't know how to explain it. And I don't even remember it, but it's happened so much that I know it's my morning, like wake up things. Right as I'm getting up and I'm lying there and and I take that time on purpose before I get up and just to let things come. so many insights and little clairvoyant hits. Oh, that's why bobbity bop bop. Oh, I think I know what just happened between those two. Like these little moments.
Yeah.
And it's right before I get out of bed. So I like to kind of sit there and kind of see what those morning little hits are.
Oh, you're on this side. I don't know what you're talking about, Karen.
I think you're right. I think you're right.
Well, Karen, if people want to learn more about your work, I mean, you have such an amazing library of resources, all your books. Can you tell them where they can find you?
Sure. Well, my favoriteest book, and I really do mean this, is this new book. I feel like this is my legacy project book. Like this is one that's like my heart, my soul, my bravest, and very vulnerable in it. And it has lots of things I think can really help people to live a meaningful life. You're to Die for Life. I created its own website called you'retodieforlife.com. And I have freebies there if people like freebies. But then my name is Karen Salmansohn. Everybody mangles it and says Salmansohn. So I have another website that has all my books and everything about me there called notsalmon.com, like not the fish, because my last name is too difficult to spell and pronounce. And so it's just notsalmon.com, and my Instagram, Not Salmon, Facebook, Not Salmon, Substack, Not Salmon. So pretty much Not Salmon.
Not salmon, right. And before we got on, because I do my intro after, I was like practicing the pronunciation. So Karen Salmansohn.
Perfect.
Salmansohn.
Yes.
Thank you so much for your time today, for your insights. This was just such a conversation that lit me up. I'm grateful to know you and to have shared this space with you today. So thank you.
Oh, well, right back at you. I really enjoyed this.
Like what you heard today and want to hear more? Wondering what comes next and what it all means? Head over to Apple Podcast, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, or anywhere you get your podcasts and hit subscribe. Also, if you could take a minute to rate and review my podcast, I would really appreciate it. Stay tuned as we continue to explore life, death, and the space between.